to thank... Oh, sorry. We ready? Good evening, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening. It's a busy time of year. Mother Nature's kind of hanging by a thread, but appreciate everybody coming out in the rain and spending some time with us this evening. My name is Chuck Batts. I'm the Lebanon Fire Chief. I've been the Fire Chief for 4 years. I was appointed in April of 2014, and I've been with the department for 21 years. I will have 22 years completed the second week of May. And believe me, 22 years ago, I didn't think that I'd be standing before a crowd tonight addressing fire department issues. But this evening, I would like to discuss a contract that we have put together at Lebanon Fire, and this would bring two departments together, the Lebanon Fire Department and the Center Township Fire Department. So I'd like to walk over to the map and... Oh, this one. The map represents all of Center Township. So everything that you see in color is Center Township, Boone County. And you'll see a dark black line throughout, and that represents the city of Lebanon. So this is unincorporated Center Township, and this is the city of Lebanon. And you can see there's numbers throughout here. And that represents CAD grids. CAD stands for Computer-Aided Dispatch. So when a call goes into dispatch, if it's a fire call, if it's an EMS call, the dispatcher will put it in. The CAD grid will recognize the run and the response. So anything that you see with a 1 represents a Lebanon fire response. Everything that you see with a 2 represents a Center Township response. So let me break down who pays for what with this map. So if you live outside the municipal boundaries of the city of Lebanon, in Center Township, your tax dollars go to the Center Township Fire Department. If you live within the city of Lebanon, your tax dollars go to the Lebanon Fire Department. Everyone in unincorporated Center Township shares in poor relief and maintaining cemeteries. So does anybody have any questions about the mapping and how it's set up?
Geozones do they have?
Chief Wiry?
I don't know the exact number. You mean Center Township have?
Yes, it looks like for the number 2s, it looks like 3.
12 or 13 at the most.
That their primary response in, I don't see.
Oh,
there's a few number 2s, like 3
Yes,
geozones.
there are a few on the western part of
so there's 3, correct?
Yes.
3 outside the city of Lebanon.
Other than that, Lebanon is primary response in the other areas?
Correct. So, excuse me. So the city of Lebanon Fire Department would be the primary response in this half of unincorporated Center Township, representing the 1100 response. Okay, we'll start the presentation. So we have several goals with this program, with unifying these two departments. And first off is beneficial public safety enhancements. We want safer scenes, we want safer citizens, and we want safer firefighters. We want to end the duplication of services. And you can see by the map, the two fire departments essentially serve the same area, the same demographic, and that's roughly about 20,000 people. So a lot of our territory overlaps one another already. And then we want to reduce capital expenditures. That's the cost of running a fire department, and we'll break that down a little further as we go along. And we want to stay taxpayer friendly. Is there a way that we could bring the two departments together and save some tax dollars along the way? Next, we have 2 graphs up on the board, and all of this data was pulled directly from Boone County 911 dispatch through our CAD, our computer-aided dispatch. And I apologize, it's a little small up there, but the first graph is calls of service in unincorporated Center Township. So That's outside the municipal boundaries of Lebanon. And we pulled data from 2015, and there was 179 calls for service in unincorporated Center Township. So Lebanon Fire made 80 of those as single engine response. Center Township made 69 of those as single engine responses. And then together, we made a total of 30 responses. So we'll call that a dual response. Now that could be a house fire, that could be a large car wreck, a gas leak, anything that would require 2 engines. And this would be categorized as automatic mutual aid. The second graph, you can see the data mirrors itself. This is 2016. There was a total of 133 calls for service. I didn't need these 22 years ago either. Lebanon Fire made 52 as a single engine response. Center Township made 54, and we made 27 together as a dual response. Now we pulled 2017's data, but you can see year after year it's mirroring itself. Just a few run discrepancies each year. So next we pulled the data, the run load from the Center Township Fire Department. So the amount of runs that they're making each year. So in 2015, they made 738 calls for service. 603 of those runs were in the city of Lebanon, in an area of the CAD grid over by their station. They made 99 runs in unincorporated Center Township and about 36 assisting other agencies. That's going out and assisting Thorntown, Advance, Jamestown, Whitestown. And you can see the data for 2016 is nearly identical. Only a few runs have changed in 1 year. Again, we pulled the 2017 data, told us the exact same thing. So any questions about these graphs? So public safety enhancements. The main goal that we're after with this, and I'll even say this, that this trumps taxpayer savings. And this is operational continuity between the two departments. Now, operational continuity could be several things. It could be a way a fire department hires someone. You know, the vetting process for an employee. As an example, when we hire a firefighter, last time we had around 230 applicants, and they go through a written test. From there, we make a cut. They go to an agility test. They go to a board interview. Then they go to an officer's interview. And then they go to a chief's interview. And then from there, we'll make another cut, and then they go to the Board of Works. So we have several steps in the process to hire an employee. So once they get to that point, and we've got it down to, let's say, a top 10, we will polygraph that employee, we will do a background investigation, we'll do a criminal history check, and then we will drug test them. And then once they enter our department, we do have annual drug testing. So those are some of the steps that Lebanon Fire uses to hire an employee. We see across Boone County, several departments operate very similar. The Lebanon Police Department has almost identical process, same way with the Boone County Sheriff's Office, Whitestown Fire, and Zionsville Fire. Other parts of operational continuity is just the policies and procedures within a department. Two departments that respond so much together should operate very similar and have similar policies. We are under the belief system that no matter what size the department and what demographic it serves, that all fire departments should pretty much be similar. Now, you're going to have small inconsistencies between departments, but for the most part, fire departments should operate very, very similar. And we feel like there's some operational continuity differences with the Center Township Fire Department. By no means are we saying that they're doing it wrong. That is not what we're saying at all. We just feel like there's some operational continuity differences between the two. A big part of my job is risk management, assessing the risk management for the department and for the city of Lebanon. So I'd like to share with you a definition for risk management in the fire service. That's the forecasting and evaluation of risk together with the identification of procedures to avoid or minimize their impact. So next I would like to share with you a visual. Is anyone familiar with the risk management Swiss cheese model? we have the Swiss cheese up there. The slices act as defenses, such as leadership, good policies, good procedure, standardized training programs. So those are all good defenses that a public agency can have. So the holes in the Swiss cheese, they can be policy differences or deficiencies, lack of policy, training differences. So it could be a wide variety of things. And some of the holes in the Swiss cheese are things that we can't control, like environmental issues, whether it's snowing, raining, whether it's icy out, it's hot, or maybe even the situation that we're in, whether it's a structure fire, it's a car wreck, or whatever the case may be. So our job in risk management is we do not want those holes in the Swiss cheese to line up, because when that happens, a catastrophic event takes place. Now, a catastrophic event in the fire service, that is death or injury to a civilian or death or injury to a firefighter. So I'd like to take a moment, and I'm going to walk up front, and I won't be able to hold a microphone, so I'll use my best chief voice to make myself heard. So in the fire service, managing risk management, we break it down into 4 categories. So we're going to talk about risk, and we're going to talk about frequency. So risk goes up, frequency goes out. So the first event that we can have is a low frequency, low risk event. Now these are runs that we don't go on very often, and they're not very dangerous. So a good example of a low frequency, low risk event would be installing a smoke detector. Going on a carbon monoxide run would be a good example of a low frequency, low risk activity. So next, going down the frequency scale, we still have a low risk activity, but now we're going to do it more often. So this is high frequency. So a low risk, high frequency activity might be an emergency medical call. We would send a fire truck out to a scene and assist the ambulance crew, and we do this a lot. This sometimes makes up 70% of our run load. So we do it a lot, but danger is not high. Next, we have our high risk, low frequency activities. These are by far the most dangerous events that we go to because they do not happen very often, but they're very, very dangerous. So an example of that would be a house fire. To take it up one step past that would be a house fire with entrapment. One past that would be a house fire where a firefighter goes down. So you can see danger is high in a high risk, low frequency situation. So the last one would be high frequency, high risk. So these are runs that we go on a lot. So we're pretty tuned into those, and they're still dangerous. So a good example of that is the time that we spend on 65, which we spend a considerable amount of time on 65. We cover one of the most dangerous stretches of 65 in all of it. The 141 area is just extremely dangerous going north and southbound. So that is a high frequency, we're there a lot, and it's very risky to be on the interstate. So we have our Swiss cheese model. Those holes line up. The likelihood of those holes lining up happen most often during the high frequency, high risk, low frequency event. So does that make sense? So next, I want to spin this around, and I want to give a good example of that. It's something that's very fresh in our memory. We're going to talk about the house fire last week at 409 Northeast Street. So when we get dispatched and we're going to a scene, let's say it's the house fire on 409 Northeast Street. So the event is going. This is the timeline of the event. When we arrive on the scene, this represents us. This represents us. When we arrive on the scene, we want to establish command and control of that incident. So on last Thursday, I was the first vehicle on the scene. My job is to immediately establish command, do a size up initial report, establish command and control, and put together within seconds a tactical plan of how we're going to stop this fire. From there, you're going to have additional apparatus come to the fire. For that particular event, it was our engine 11, our engine 12, engine 22 from Center Township, and I believe ladder 71 from Whitestown. So I know all that apparatus is coming to the scene. I get to the scene and I have to make a decision. My tactics have to go quicker and move quicker than the fire, because the fire is going to continue to grow. So my tactics have to jump ahead of the fire and get control of the situation. So the event moves along and we have to establish tactical advantage in that incident. So we have all the apparatus coming. Crews get to the scene and I make a decision that we're going to go in. We have a small window to go in and attack the fire and put it out. Now, LPD was already on the scene and did an absolutely amazing job of evacuating those two apartments and evacuating the house to the north and the south. So I know that there's no one in the house. So we're just saving a structure at this point. So I know that we have a window of opportunity that we can get in there and maybe make an impact on the fire. So I send 2 crews in. They go in. It seems like an eternity. The situation deteriorates on the inside. The house is balloon construction. It's been remodeled several times, and they're not making good progress with the fire. Our on-duty battalion chief, Brian Cope, was the lead officer on the inside. I called in for conditions. He reported to me that they could not find the fire. At that time, I noticed that in both gables of the house, a lot of smoke started pushing. So that tells me that they can't find the fire, it's actively growing, and it's above them now. So this is just a house. Risk versus reward. I make the decision to pull the crews out. You know, we have to change our tactics. Someone is going to get injured. So when that happens, the fire advances past my tactics. So in an instant, you know, this isn't all just me. On the scene with me is Deputy Chief Mike Baird. He was our accountability officer for that day, so he's keeping track of what crews are going where. I also have the command staff of the Whitestown Fire Department. The Chief of Administration is flying a drone over the fire, so we're looking at it from that point of view, you know, making quality decisions. So tactics have to change, so that moves the event past the tactics. So we decided that we are going to spray water from the outside. We're going to go to defensive tactics. So we pull a blitz line. That's a 2.5 or 3-inch line, shoves about 300 gallons per minute of water. We also have a smooth bore line on 1 3/4 that pushes about 160 gallons a minute. And then we have an 1 3/4 combination nozzle that pushes roughly about 110. So we're going to spend between 5 and 7 minutes putting water on this fire, hoping our tactics, once again, jump ahead of the fire. Because our goal now is, we're not going to save that structure, but we have 2 homes to the north and the south that we must save. So we need to keep the fire contained to that structure. We do not want it to go through the roof and damage the homes to the north and the south. So we jump ahead again with our tactics. It works. We slowly start knocking down the fire, and after about 7 minutes, we decided that, hey, we've got it under control. We're going to stop our defensive tactics. We're going to regroup, and then we're going to move crews back inside. We had 2 crews working at once with hand line and truck crews going in, and they're pulling ceiling, and they're getting to spot fires within that structure. So the fire slows down, boom, and our tactics continue to advance. That's a good thing. That's what we want. So that's a lot of information, along with the 4 types of runs that we go on. So you can see how important operational continuity is between 2 departments, because you have so many moving parts, and it's always life safety. If the citizens are outside of the residence, we still have life safety of the firefighters to think about. and we have to establish operational continuity. We have to have that on the scene to make sure we maintain a tactical advantage. Any questions about this? Move this over. We're ready to go back to the slideshow. So, the public safety benefits of unifying the two departments. What enhancements can we make by bringing the two together? And the first is staffing. And this is what a very good possibility of what this would look like when we bring the two departments together, having a third station. Each station would be staffed with 4 firefighters assigned with minimum staffing at 3 per station, but then we would use our overtime budget and then we would staff back up to 4. 4 is national standards for an engine company. So let's say that we have a 4-man company, we have someone, and I use man as a generic term, a 4-person company, and someone is sick, someone is injured, someone has a personal day, someone has a vacation day. We're going to use our overtime budget so we can upstaff that engine back to 4. Lebanon Fire uses a battalion chief. A battalion chief is a shift manager. Their job is to oversee everything on a daily shift operations level. So if we are able to do this contract, then the third station would also be applied to the battalion chief's duties. So he would go out, he would be a part of that third station, just checking things, make sure things are going well. He also makes runs, just anything that the shift would need. He establishes training at the company level. There's just a laundry list of things that the battalion chief does. And this is something that we also use out in the township right now because of automatic mutual aid. So if there is a structure fire or another event, a significant event out in unincorporated Center Township, our on-duty battalion chief is going to go. Next is the administrative response, and that's the chiefs. We have 2 deputy chiefs. Our deputy chief of administration is Mike Baird. He's also our chief inspector. And our Deputy Chief of Operations is Deputy Chief Robert Wiry, and he's our Chief of Investigations. So, what is an administrative chief's response? When people experience a significant loss, whether it's a loss of life or a loss of property, many times they do not know what direction to turn. There's just so many questions. So, the administrative chief's response is going to assist with that. Many times we go out and we meet these property owners, these loved ones that have lost someone, and they're like, Chief, what do I do next? You know, we can assist them with insurance documentation. We can assist them with finding somewhere to live. We can get with the Salvation Army, the Red Cross. We can make sure that they have clothes, that they have gas money, that they have somewhere to live. So these are some different things that the administrative chief would do. And they would also go to the scene and be a part of the command system, just like I was at 409 Northeast Street. I was a part of the command staff for that, making decisions at the fire. So I'd like to give you a very brief example of how that works. And in our recent memory, that's the Kaiser Estates fire, a very large fire here in Lebanon. Deputy Chief Robert Wiry, he was in command of that fire. Chief Wiry does an excellent job of logistics. You know, a lot of people coming into the scene, a lot of apparatus. We have to establish a RIT team, a rapid intervention team to assist down firefighters. Just so many different things going on at the command level, and Chief Wiry just does an excellent job with that. At the Kaiser Estates fire, I was an operations officer. I was making tactical decisions at that fire on, can we keep our tactics ahead of the event? And Deputy Chief Baird probably had the least publicized job with that situation, but I believe that he had the most important job. And he was logistics for every single person that lived in Kaiser Estates that was affected by that fire. So he met with Kaiser Estates management and started meeting with the renters and saying, what do you need? You know, many people have medication that they need immediately. They cannot go without it. So Deputy Chief Baird would coordinate that with us, saying, hey, we need to get this insulin. We need to get these pills. So that's the first thing that he would look at. And from there, he contacted the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, and he started managing where all these displaced people are going to go and their property loss. Just did an absolutely amazing job. So there's just a quick synopsis of an administrative chief's response. Next, we have standardized training programs. This is a huge part of operational continuity. You know, this can both be a defense in the Swiss cheese model, or this can be a whole. Now, there has been a lot of banter on Facebook about this and a lot of negative comments, and I'm not a proponent of that. I do not have Facebook, but I get a lot of information from people that say, hey, I saw this and I saw that. And I've seen where there's some comments that people have made that the Center Township firefighters are not certified. That is 100% untrue. There is not one uncertified firefighter at Center Township. Every single one of those guys have the certifications necessary to be a firefighter. And that's the truth. So if you have heard anything to the contrary about the certification level of a Center Township firefighter, I'm telling you it's not true. Now, with fire certifications, it's kind of a strange animal. And I don't agree with some of it, but it's the way that they set it up and nobody asked me. But with firefighter certifications, many of them are a lifetime cert. So if you are an 18-year-old and you want to go to college and you want to get your firefighter 1-2 certification, you can get that at 18 years old, and that is a lifetime cert. You will never lose that certification. There's also several other certifications in the fire service that once you attain, it's yours. A couple years ago, we hired a young firefighter, and he had just finished up at IB Tech and doing a great job in our process, just outstanding young man. So we get to the part where we're looking at resumes, and I looked at his resume. It's full of certifications. I mean, he had more certifications than Chief Wiry, and I didn't think that was possible. You know, there's just no way. But he had no experience. He had no training. But he had all the certifications. So, as firefighters, as chief officers, as fire departments, it's our job to make sure that we maintain our training, our certification levels there, but we want to make sure that we're maintaining our ongoing education in the fire service. So by having standardized training programs with the two departments unifying, we get a good operational continuity. Continuing with taxpayer benefits. This part is the crux of the contract. So the approved budget for the Center Township Fire Department in 2018 is $846,660. The City of Lebanon contract amount for fire rescue BLS non-transport coverage for unincorporated Center Township is $650,000. So let's talk about just for a moment what fire rescue BLS non-transport coverage is. Fire rescue, that's pretty cut and dry. But with that, you get a lot of divisions. You get an investigation division, you get an inspection division, a public safety division, you get a car seat program, you get a CPR program. So you get a lot of things with that fire and rescue service. Next, we have our BLS non-transport. That's saying that we are going to take a fire truck and we're going to assist the EMS crew, the ambulance crew at your house. We're going to care for you at the scene, and we're going to assist you and load you in the ambulance. Non-transport means that we're not going to put you in our fire truck. The Lebanon Fire Department holds a certification in Indiana to be a BLS non-transport agency. So just quick math, that's about a $200,000 savings each year. Roughly 1.9 to $2 million over 10 years. That's a significant savings. Before I go to the next part, and I've answered this question quite a bit, Chief, what happens to that $200? Or excuse me, $2,000? I cannot answer that question. That question would be for the trustee-elect on what they choose to do with that $200,000. Do they reinvest that into Center Township? Do they assist with mental health programs? Do they further assist with poor relief? Do they lower the tax rate? They have several choices for that $200,000 savings of what they can do. But I cannot stand up here and tell you what's going to happen with that money. So next we have saving taxpayers' capital expenditures. Capital expenditures are large purchases in the fire service. An example would be a fire truck. Fire trucks can run to the tune of about $500,000. Ladder trucks can go between $700,000 and $1 million. Very, very expensive equipment. Center Township does have an older piece of apparatus, and I'm not trying to detract at all from their first out truck. Engine 22 is a 2001 McGinley Spartan pumper, and it's reaching the end of its lifespan. And you know, probably very few people in this room have a car from 2001. So how can we use this unification plan to save with that capital expenditure? Well, Lebanon Fire Station 11 cross-staffs their engine and their ladder. And what that means is we have an engine 11, and we have ladder 13. Two self-sufficient pieces of equipment that have all the equipment necessary to make a run. Both are NFPA compliant. So let's say that we get an engine run. So we cross-staff, so the engine crew goes out, leaving the ladder out of service. Same thing happens when we catch a ladder run, engine 11's out of service. So what we would like to do is at the Center Township building, move ladder 13 to that building, saving that capital purchase. So we're saving $500,000 in purchasing a new piece of equipment for Center Township. We're sharing, we're pooling our resources. Also, Center Township operates on a low-pressure SCBA system. That's a self-contained breathing apparatus. That's the air tanks that we wear on our back and our mask. And I want to tell you that that system works perfectly. It is an older system, but it works just fine. It's a little older technology, being low pressure. Many of the departments that we have mutual aid with, like Whitestown, Zionsville, Brownsburg, use a high-pressure system. Again, operational continuity. I've talked with Chief Spidell, and they're very interested in making a purchase and upgrading to a high-pressure system. I talked to Chief Spidell because I deal a lot with air packs. It's something that I've had a passion for throughout my career. And I spent a lot of time with the equipment. I know the ins and outs of them. So he asked my thoughts. You know, what would it take to switch our department over? Well, we do not have an air pack for every single person on our department. We do it seat-based. So however many seats we have in an apparatus, that's how many air packs we have. Same thing with our radios. We do not have a radio for every single person on our department. We assign it by seat. So I said, Chief, you know, how many, Chief Spidell, how many seats do you want to outfit with SCBA? So he did a count. So roughly, high-pressure SCBA purchase for the Center Township Fire Department would be about $85,000. That's a significant amount of money. But what if we could save that? Because we already have high-pressure SCBA on ladder 13 that's ready to go. We could move that equipment into that building. So, you know, you add up a $500,000 fire truck, an $85,000 SCBA purchase, and then you lump $200,000 savings, you're circling right around $800,000 on any given year. Threw a lot at you right there. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Chuck, I do have a question.
Yes.
I want to make sure I understood what you just told us. Never used one of these.
If I heard you correctly, there are two trucks at one station, but only sufficient manning at that station for one of the two, and depends on what the need is for the particular call.
Correct.
Is that right?
That is correct.
So if Center Township was to become a component of Lebanon Fire and that station was available, you would be moving one piece of equipment and then relying on firefighters at that station that third station to man that extra piece of apparatus.
Yes.
Thus the savings that you were showing on the
Correct.
screen. Okay, thank
So
you.
we could avoid that capital purchase.
I
move
just
our
wanted to make
equipment.
sure I
Right.
processed that the way you meant it.
But you would no longer be cross-staffing. You would have specific staffing then,
Correct.
so there would be no more cross-staffing. You wouldn't have to pick and choose anymore. It would all be in service.
Exactly. And that would affect our ISO rating, and we're going to talk about ISO a little bit later. But the city of Lebanon takes a hit because we cross-staff our ladder. Due to the size of our city, the size of our buildings, the height of our buildings, the setback of our homes, we're required to have a ladder. So it's a necessary piece of equipment for the city of Lebanon.
The last question I would have is, you were talking about your hiring process, and you were talking about polygraphs, and they go through rigorous interviews and then also background checks. Is there any difference between training a firefighter at Center Township versus how you train to prepare someone to come into your fire service? I mean, do you use an academy? Do they use an academy? And about how many hours of training does your people receive to go out on the streets?
Well, we do use an academy. And when I was appointed chief in 2014, and I essentially drew a line in the sand and said, from this point forward, we're going to use an accredited academy for our firefighters. Up until that point, if you were hired on our department and you carried the proper certifications, we would do what we would call an in-house mini academy. So for the law enforcement side, that's a field training officer. So we would do a field training firefighter mini academy for someone that we hired into our department that has certifications. So if prior to 2014, if you did not have any fire certifications, we would send you to a fire academy. So all of our firefighters are not academy trained. It's right around about 85% of our department that has been to an academy.
Is that the same with Center Township?
Center Township uses a different system. They do a lot of in-house training. They'll bring firefighters in and train them on site. Their last firefighter participated in an 8-week mini academy with the Zionsville Fire Department. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Continuing with taxpayer benefits.
Chief, I've got a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When talking about cost for equipment, say the two departments are merged, does Lebanon Fire have any concerns in the next 2 to 3 years that they will need additional equipment, say another engine or any additional systems?
No.
No.
We are very well, we have a lot of newer equipment.
Okay.
One program that I brought to Lebanon Fire in 2014 was a fleet management system, to where we're turning apparatus after so many years and getting rid of aging equipment. It's a very good program. It keeps newer equipment in the station. We take the next oldest piece of equipment and we take it to reserve status. So let's say we have a tire fail, we have an oil change, whatever the case may be, we can go to our reserve piece of equipment, and then the very oldest piece of equipment is then sold and moved out of the station.
My other question is, say that there is a need, say 10, 15 years down the road, that you need to replace an engine. How would the cost sharing be done between the city and the township for replacing that engine in your proposal?
I think that would be negotiations with our fire board that I'm going to be talking about here later on.
Okay.
I think that's a very important component, apparatus replacement. My idea is to implement a fire board. That's just and I can go over that a little bit later, but that would be discussions within that board looking at demographics, population, and cost sharing with that.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
We're going to talk about how we implement a new program that helps us kind of level out the cost of the leasing program. So we
Yes. Our fire trucks, our first out engines, our rescue pumpers, we like to turn about every 10 years, 10 to 11 years, maybe even pushing 12 years, depending on the hours on the apparatus. So currently, we lease our apparatus, and that's not a lease to turn back in. That's a lease purchase program, very similar to a large piece of farm equipment. So they call it a lease. Pretty much it's a simple interest loan that we're paying off between 5 and 10 years. We also use a fleet program for our staff vehicles. We turn those every 3 years within a true lease program.
And that helps us even out the costs.
Absolutely. For the city, you know, we have X amount of dollars that we can spend in our budget, and we have many departments that need to go to that budget and get money from it to make purchases, maybe a dump truck, maybe new mowers, maybe a new street sweeper. And by going the lease route, the leasing route, we're not taking $500,000 from the city budget, rather we're taking $100,000 or $60,000 so we can do a little bit more of our cost sharing and savings with other departments.
Any other questions?
So next we have negotiable term. And this is something that I'm stepping back from. And we're going to talk a little bit later about a fire board. But to me, this is something for the trustee and the mayor and the fire board to sit down and talk about the term of the contract. I have no strong opinion either way of how long of a contract this should be. I feel like this should be up to our elected officials to make that decision and make the best decision for our citizens. ISO reevaluation. ISO stands for Insurance Services Office. We just finished up an ISO evaluation. We finished up about 2 weeks ago. And ISO comes into cities, municipalities, townships, and they will grade your fire department per se. And there's 3 very particular components with that. They're going to look at the fire department. They're going to look at the staffing. They're going to look at the equipment. They're going to look at your training, just everything about your department, and they're going to evaluate that. The next component, they're going to look at your water utility. They're going to see how much water is available. They're going to flow test your fire hydrants, check pressures, how many gallons per minute can the hydrant produce, and at what pressure. And then the third component is they're going to go look at your dispatch center, our 911 center, and they're going to look and see how long it takes to process a call to get it out to the station, to the companies, to the apparatus, and then that apparatus marks en route. So those are 3 very particular components that ISO uses. So the city of Lebanon is an ISO 4. We are trying very, very hard to get to an ISO 3, and I think that we're going to be very close. I cannot guarantee that we're going to get to an ISO 3 this time, but I think that we're going to be very, very close. Now, Center Township is a combination of an ISO 6 and an ISO 9. So I'm going to jump over here real quick, use my chief's voice so I don't have to use the mic. So the part of unincorporated Center Township that just lies on the fringes of the city of Lebanon, you know, they may only be 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant. They're going to get the benefits of that, and they're going to be an ISO 6, right around the edges of the city. But out here, they're going to be an ISO 9. And I'm going to defend that because this is a very vast area, okay? 1,800 people live in unincorporated Center Township. And even though no one lives at 550 East and 250 North, somebody has to be responsible for that. And I get a little frustrated when I hear people talking about population and a weaponized population, and they say, you know, taxes have gone up, but our population has not. Well, there's a bigger picture to that. Even though there's not a lot of population growth in unincorporated Center Township, they're still responsible for 550 East and 250 North. Someone that's traveling from Fort Wayne, Indiana, in a snowstorm, is driving through here, has a car accident, somebody has to care for those people. The transient population of Center Township and Lebanon is huge. 5 years ago, there was a study on I-65 that 165,000 cars pass through the city of Lebanon every day. You multiply that by 2.5 people in each of those cars. That's over 400,000 people a day, 5 years ago, that travel through our city. We're responsible for every single soul. Every single soul that passes through here. Then you need to factor in the transient business population, the people that come to our city to work. We have a growing industrial park. We have a lot of people coming to our city to work. XPO, a huge company that just came in, has a great pay rate for employees. They're already up to, I believe, 400 employees. They expect 1,100 total in 4 years. You factor in other large businesses, EA Lubricants, Kin Foods, Maplehurst. That's a large amount of people that's coming through the city of Lebanon, and we are very much responsible for those people. So while population, you may not see big jumps, the transient population for our area is absolutely huge. When you look, they added 3 lanes to 65 going both north and south, and we fill in the cars every day. So out here in Center Township, they are ISO 9. There's no fire hydrants out there. That's out of their span of control. You know, that's one part of the grading system that they can't get because, you know, they're just not there. So we think that we have found a solution for that. So through our ISO grading process, I was on a huge learning curve. The last time that we had an ISO process was about 5 years ago. I was a battalion chief at the time. I was in the companies. I had nothing to do with ISO. Both Chief Baird and Chief Wiry were involved with that ISO process. They really helped me through it, and I learned a lot. So when we met with our ISO agent, we said, hey, we have this situation, we have this plan. What could we do for the residents of unincorporated Center Township? And they said, well, you need to apply for a tanker shuttle program. So essentially what that means is to get X amount of water, approximately 9,000 gallons of water, to anywhere in Center Township in roughly about 14 minutes. So it's a program that we would apply for that says that we can get that amount of water there. Now, it's just not as easy to wave a wand and say, oh, we can do that, that's fine. We're going to have to contact other fire departments in the area. We're going to have to see what their staffing is. Are they career? Are they volunteer? Do they have tankers? How much water do they bring with them? How long does it take them to get to the scene? We even have to film how long it takes to fill a tanker with water, and then we have to film and see how long it takes to remove that water, dump that water from that truck. So we can compile all this information, and there is a very good possibility that we can get unincorporated Center Township down to an ISO 6. Now that's a big move, to go from a 9 to a 6. That's going to really impact homeowners' insurance costs, and especially commercial insurance costs with our farmers. Now in the city of Lebanon, going from a 4 to 3 is really not going to impact homeowners all that much, but it's going to impact the commercial policies a great deal. Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
If you guys have the parts of the township that are prefaced with a 1, and you're the primary caller there, why don't you have an ISO 9 for that portion of the county?
Out here, because we're an automatic mutual aid department, we have no true, it's not our territory, we're automatic mutual aid. We cannot control things out here because we're not jurisdictionally responsible. We're just mutual aid. Am I not answering your question?
Well, I thought earlier you said that all the 1s were Lebanon response.
It's a Lebanon response. So even though this is unincorporated Center Township, we can see Station 11 and sometimes Station 12, which is geographically closer, so they would be the first response apparatus. So right here at 400 East and 350 North, Station 12 is 5.4 miles. Center Township headquarters is 8.8. Even though we would respond to that area, we're not in charge of it. We can't make the decision to go to a tanker shuttle program. That would have to come from the Center Township leadership.
It's two different, right? The legal coverage versus what makes the most sense from a license.
That would lie with the Center Township leadership and the fire chief to make the decision to move forward with that program. So just what we talked about, we're going to try to reduce homeowner and commercial business insurance costs. And then just in the duplication of service. As you can see, we're serving the same demographic. we can take it down to essentially one responding agency. Pooling resources, taking the two entities, the equipment, the manpower, and bringing them together. So what happens to the Center Township property and equipment? Center Township would remain in ownership of all of their property and all their equipment. We do not want the deed to their building. We do not want the title to their trucks. In this negotiation process, in this contract, what we are offering is you keep your equipment, but we would like to take over maintenance, building maintenance, equipment maintenance, upkeep. We would take their turnout gear that they currently have and we would put it in our inspection program. We would take over SCBA flow testing and maintenance. We would take over ladder testing. So keeping their equipment, their building, but we would have cost sharing with that in maintaining our equipment. We would take our policies, our procedures, and apply it to their equipment. Next, let's talk about the Center Township employees. All 6 career employees would become sworn City of Lebanon firefighters and City of Lebanon employees. The time of those 6 firefighters, their time on the job, their years of service, their longevity would laterally transfer to the City of Lebanon. So if we have a career firefighter at Center Township that's been on for 20 years, we would move their 20 years over to the City of Lebanon, and whatever the handbook says that we should give them or what they have earned in the way of vacation, they would get that. So their people would not come over as first-year firefighters. Now, another hotly contested issue with this is we would not be bringing over the part-time firefighters of Center Township. The City of Lebanon does not use part-time firefighters or part-time police officers. It's just something that we don't do. Some departments do. I've had several conversations with Chief Jamie Van Gorder of Zionsville, and they have a very small part-time staff that they use. And he said with that, all of those people that are on his part-time roster go through an identical hiring process as a full-time employee. They're expected to maintain their training just as a full-time employee, and they go through the whole battery of exams just like a full-time employee. Drug testing, background investigation, criminal history background check. All of those things would apply to those part-time employees. But I want to be very clear that we would not be assuming those part-time employees, and it's been a very difficult decision for me. Just very, very difficult. They're good people. I'm not saying they're not. And it's not the move that the city wants to make. We're not going to go that direction and go with a part-time staff. As fire departments grow and evolve, just like Brownsburg Fire started out as volunteer staff, they had part-time staff, and they moved to a completely career staff. It's just an evolution of the fire service. Now, I'm not saying that some departments don't stay with a part-time staff, but many times it's an evolution of a career department. Any questions about that? Sir, ma'am?
How many part-time staff do they have, and how much, what constitutes part-time, time-wise?
I have heard 2 numbers. I've heard the number 12 and the number 14. Now, between those 12 and 14 firefighters, 6 of those are career firefighters at other departments within this county and other contiguous counties. So they are career firefighters other places. They choose to come to Center Township and work part-time. The rest of the firefighters have careers outside the fire service and come to Center Township and work part-time. That answer your question?
How much time do they serve? Part-time, 1 day a week, 1 day a month?
Well, that's really up to the staffing of Center Township. I believe the way that they're set up is that they work just like we do, 24 on, 48 off. So I believe that many times they split their part-time shifts from 24 hours down to 12 hours. So they'll have a part-time individual come in and work 7A to 7P. They will go home, the next part-time employee comes in, and they'll work from 7P to 7A. Now, the amount of days they work, I can't answer that. You know, there's some part-time employees there that make, you know, $10,000 to $15,000 a year in a part-time wage.
Chief, I have a question. I want to revert back just a little bit. Okay. You talked about just a minute ago that you were not going to...
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you said you were not going to own the buildings, own the trucks and things like that. But you did stress that you were going to maintain them. When does that come out of your current budget, or is that going to be the Center Township budget? Who pays the utilities for these buildings and things like that? Are you going to absorb that cost?
That's a part of the contract. The money from the contract goes several different places. The bulk of it will cover the salaries of the 6 career firefighters that are moved to the city of Lebanon. The remaining amount of that money will be put into a station line to pay utilities, to buy any station needs that they might have. They will go into a fuel line to put fuel in the trucks. It will go in an equipment line. You know, if a firefighter damages their personal protective equipment, we can pull from that line to replace or repair that gear. So there's several different places where that money will go. We will also add to our training line because we have more firefighters now. We do training outside of our department, and we will add to our training line.
Okay. Second part of my question, you said you would be absorbing the 6 firefighters that are certified firefighters from Center Township.
No, they're career.
They're all certified. I used the wrong terminology there. You said, you know, they'd be eligible for the vacation stuff. Does that make them also eligible for pensions? And we have to, you know, absorb that cost? I mean, this is cost that affects us all in a sense as our tax dollars. So, I mean, is that again figured into this, or? Absolutely, and I can explain that very briefly. So all of their salaries are going to be taken care of with that $650,000. Now, Center Township uses 2 kinds of pensions. They use the 1977 fund, and that's what Lebanon Fire uses, Zionsville, IFD. It's a very commonly used pension, and it has age requirements there. You can only be hired between 21 and 36. Now, Center Township also uses another pension that I'm trying to get very familiar with that doesn't have age restraints. So essentially, they've hired some individuals, that have been older than 36, so they're using this different pension. So what would happen is we would lateral transfer all those employees. It's really just paperwork is what that amounts to. And then we would use the funds from that $650,000 to pay their salary and to pay their benefits, including the city's contribution to their pension. We would assume the township's part, their contribution to their pension, but it would be covered with that $650,000 contract amount. So it's not going to affect that is not going to affect the taxpayers of Lebanon.
Chief Batts, this is no different than it was back in 1976 and 77 when the current, or the board, township board at that time made a decision to pull out. There were 2 engines housed, or an engine and a tanker, in Lebanon Fire headquarters. There were 6 firemen that had salaries that were based by Center Township and Lebanon Fire. My dad happened to be one of those 6 men. So this contract, or this discussion that you're having, is nothing new. It's an upgrade, though, and I think it's very important that the citizens realize the situations have changed. Training is important. Certifications are important, and I think you've done a tremendous job showing, you know, the benefits of what could come out of this, both savings and merging the 2 departments. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. We have another question.
Well, actually, I just wanted to make a clarification. So basically what you're saying is
the civilian perf that a few of them were on, because they were too old, above the age of 36, their pension is currently funded. It's been funded, so all you're taking over is once they come over as an employee. So the taxpayers of Lebanon don't have to go backwards and fund that pension. No. It's already funded.
It's already
funded.
Same
way with the 77 fund.
Correct.
It's already funded, it's paid up. You're just going to take over from here.
Exactly. We're not assuming any additional cost by absorbing their pension. So it's already been funded throughout their career, and the $650,000 will serve as paying, part of that will serve as paying their salaries and their benefits. So not affecting Lebanon taxpayers. So essentially, the contract amount will always pay for those 6 salaries.
How long do you intend to maintain and stay in that building before you deem necessary to move to a newer facility?
Well, that's a very good question.
And second part, are you currently seeking, or the city seeking, another location?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. We built Station 12 in 2001, and ever since that time, we've been looking at a third station. So the answer to that question, yeah, we've looked around, we've shopped around for the possibility of a third station. But the Center Township building is there. It's paid for. It's a quality building. My suggestion is that we use the current building and we do not build a new building. We bring the right people in there to evaluate the building and look at its needs. Does it need a new roof? Does it need a new heating HVAC system? Currently, the Center Township building does not have an exhaust system in the bays. That's something that we would need to change. So when they start their trucks, the diesel exhaust fumes consume the bay. They also store their turnout gear in the bay. UV light destroys turnout gear. So we would need to make some renovations to the building, absolutely. We would need to build an additional room for turnout gear. We would need to get the building OSHA compliant if it's not currently. But I want to evaluate that building and use it as long as possible. It's there, it's paid for, it's a quality structure. You know, we may have to do some work on it, but I think it's very feasible to stay there. But at the same time, yeah, over the last 15 years, the city has looked at different areas. Where do we need a third fire station? And many times, communities and townships go to ISO for recommendations. Station 11 was built pretty far south in the city. And I would assume that there was some intention that maybe some growth was going to go on to the south. But that puts a large distance between Station 11 and Station 12. And it's our goal to triangulate that care. ISO wants a station 1.5 miles from every residence and every business. That's nearly impossible. You can't do that. That's a perfect world scenario. And there's no way that the city or Lebanon, or any city for that matter, can manage that. But I think the Center Township building is very viable. You know, I've heard comments, Chief, hey, you're going to get this contract and you're going to go build a $2 million building at spot X. Not true. Is it true that we've looked around to see what options are? Absolutely. I think that's just good business planning, good management, good foresight. But we are going to use that Center Township building as the third station for the city of Lebanon. I can guarantee that.
Hey Chuck, those upgrades you mentioned, the exhaust system, all of that, is that included in the contract as well?
Yes, we believe that we can do some initial necessary upgrades to that building with part of that contract money. Sir?
Is it feasible to consider moving some fire apparatus back in the downtown station, or is too much of it tore apart to make that practical?
No, sir. That has been turned over completely to the Lebanon Police Department. They have changed the inside of that building tremendously, and our fire department, or excuse me, our fire apparatus had to be constructed specifically for that building to fit into it. So we don't even have a fire truck that would fit in that building. Any other questions? Okay, moving on. All 6 career employees of the Center Township Fire Department would assume the rank of first-class firefighter.
And then for promotions, things like that, they would be absolutely equal with the LFD?
Absolutely. And we can talk about the fire board as we move on, but that would be one job of the fire board to handle promotions. It's just a layer of transparency that we need to bring to this whole situation. But they would absolutely be available for promotion. So the 6 members that are coming over, they would be sworn City of Lebanon firefighters, our employees, and they would get all applicable benefits of the City of Lebanon handbook: bereavement days, sick days, personal days, vacation days, death benefits, insurance benefit. They would not be treated any differently than any other employee in the City of Lebanon, any other full-time employee in the City of Lebanon. Now with that is we would take them and put them in our random drug testing program. I believe very, very strongly in random drug testing. I wrote the random drug testing policy for the City of Lebanon, and we implemented it in 2015. So those 6 firefighters would be put into the rotation on our random drug testing. We use a 5-panel DOT random drug test. They would also participate in our work performance evaluations. So some banter that I've heard is, Chief, we know that some of those firefighters are getting a little older. You know, are you just going to bring them in, and if they can't meet your standards, you're just going to fire them? Absolutely not. We have a work performance evaluation, a WPE. That is a standardized test that firefighters must take each year, and the 2 components is physical ability and skill. We have a 7-minute test that's administered to our firefighters once a year, so they will be cleared to be able to ride the apparatus and wear turnout gear. We also use the WPE as a return to work evaluation. So if we have a firefighter with an extended illness or injury, before they can come back to full duty, they must pass this work performance evaluation. So our plan is, with the 6 Center Township firefighters, we're going to bring them over and we're going to do the WPE. And then we're going to see how they did with that. If they're under 7 minutes, it's an easy pass. But we're going to give them a year, if they do not pass, to get things squared away. So in a year, are we going to fire them if they can't pass it? Absolutely not. So currently, if we have a Lebanon firefighter that fails a work performance evaluation, they come to an administrative shift. They get to come to work with me. Not a real good time. They're off the apparatus. They're working Monday through Friday, and we're going to assign them a certified peer fitness trainer. We're going to get a dietitian, and we're going to get their physical health under control. And we are going to work with them on a daily basis while they're doing other administrative duties to get them to a point that they can pass the work performance evaluation. So the same thing with the 6 guys coming over. Let's say we have someone struggle with the test. After a year, we'll pull them off shift. We'll assign a peer fitness trainer to them, and we can get them through it. The most senior member of our department is in his mid-50s. I said seasoned, not oldest. He goes through the WPE like nothing. So it's a very attainable goal. It's a very doable test. It's just a change. It's a change for the Center Township firefighters. They don't use a WPE. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just operationally different from the Lebanon Fire Department. So that's how we would handle the work performance evaluation. There's been a lot of questions about that. Any questions?
I was on the Center Township board when the station was built. So I've kind of had an eye on it over the years. So I have a question now. Is the current Center Township building not up to snuff? And if so, why not?
Well, sir, I cannot intelligently answer that question. I'm not qualified to make the decisions on the structural integrity of the building, what shape the roof is in, what shape the masonry bricks are in. I cannot look at the HVAC system and make that decision. We would have to bring in certified personnel to take a look at that, evaluate it, and make a cost analysis and to see, what do we need to invest in this building. I think it's a very viable building. If things are not maintained, I cannot answer why that is not the case.
We do know the exhaust system, though, is a big one for us.
Yes,
and make sure it's OSHA compliant is also.
That is one thing that we would need to do is install that exhaust system. We would have to move the turnout gear, and we would want to build a workout facility within that building. Both Station 11 and Station 12 have a workout room. The firefighters have a mandatory 1-hour workout each day. So we want to make that available to the firefighters in the third station. So there would have to be some renovations, and it's time. The building was built in 77, sir. The building was built in 77. I believe it had some remodel work done in the early 90s. I believe it had some repair work on the roof, maybe early this year or last year. Not a new roof, but some roof repairs. Transparency. This is huge. You know, we're bringing together two departments. We're bringing together the citizens of unincorporated Center Township and the city of Lebanon. So how can we provide oversight with this? And I propose a City of Lebanon Center Township Fire Board. This is not reinventing the wheel. There are many, many communities that use a fire board. One of our closest neighbors, Whitestown, uses a fire board because they have the City of Whitestown Fire Department, and they also serve Worth Township. So what would this look like? The members would be the mayor, the trustee, a member of the Board of Works of the City of Lebanon, a Township Advisory Board member, and then we would want a private citizen from both unincorporated Center Township and the City of Lebanon to be on this board. Now, what would this board do? It would deal with policy and procedure changes. It would deal with hiring, promotion, contract negotiations. So it would be the voice of everyone in this room, whether you lived in the City of Lebanon or unincorporated Center Township. You could go to your board members and you could talk to them in the direction that they want to see this unified department go. I think this is a very, very, very important component of this. I do not believe that this should move forward without a fire board and the oversight. And I think it brings together the governing bodies of both entities and transparency. Any questions about the fire board? We are at the end. This is my contact information, as well as Deputy Chief Mike Baird and Deputy Chief Robert Wiry. That is our personal cell phones. That is our office numbers, and that is our email address. If you work second shift and you do not get off until 11 o'clock at night or midnight, I will meet you on your time. I will schedule a meeting at 1 o'clock in the morning and meet you because you just got off work and you have to sleep during the day. We will do everything we can to reach out to the public and be transparent on this. So please don't abuse those numbers. But I see John Messenger, putting my cell phone number in. That's all right. But no, this is how you can contact us. We are here for you. We are public servants. We have a servant's heart, and we want to hear from you. You are the people that we serve, and we want to continue to earn your trust. Sir?
I got a couple more questions about the whole process. This is all going to hinge on the township trustee, right?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, if the township trustee does not agree to this, then how are you going to, you just going to hostilely take it over? Or?
Oh, no, I misunderstood your question. I'm sorry. I thought you meant that only maybe one candidate was interested in doing it.
No.
Oh, no.
Any of the four candidates can come in, can come after they're elected and say, okay, this is good, exactly. Let's do it. I get that. My question is, it all hinges on your candidate that gets elected if they so choose to do this, right?
Correct.
How long is the contract for?
As I stated before, that's a negotiable term. That's going to be between the mayor and the trustee.
Okay. Time forward. Let's go another 4 years. Another trustee comes in. He says, I don't like it. This is not what I feel is right for the township. What happens then?
Well, I think a lot of negotiations would take place. That is a very rare occurrence for something like that to happen. I can't think of any place off the top of my head where the trustee has decided to move fire protection backwards.
We're talking about a new trustee.
Correct, sir.
Okay. The next question is, okay, if that happens, the building still belongs to the township, right?
Correct.
The equipment that's in the building, does it belong to the township?
Absolutely, sir.
So if you put a new engine in there 2 years prior, and when it's turned back over, any of that equipment that's in there stays with the building, right?
No, sir. That is that equipment is owned by the city of Lebanon. So titles and ownership does not change hands.
Okay. So if it does happen, or you guys decide to pull out, then all you got's an empty shell for the township to try to fill.
I can't imagine, and sir, I'm not...
I understand you can't imagine that, but I'm just thinking forward.
I cannot think of a fire department, a township, a municipality that wanted to go backwards in public safety.
Okay.
And take let's say we get an ISO rating, we do the tanker shuttle program in Center Township, and we're able to move from a 9 to a 6 as a team. I think that the trustee would have a lot to answer for if he wanted to take that away from his constituents. And to answer your other questions, there will not be a hostile takeover. For one, there's no way it could happen. We have no interest in taking over anything with a hostile environment. That's not the way to get things done. The way to get things done is having meetings like this, having oversight with the fire board, and having quality communication, and not the negative bannering on Facebook.
So, Chief, if we implement a fire board, you pretty much get 4 new bosses, right?
I get a ton of new bosses, and I'm okay with that. I welcome oversight to my position. I really do. There's a lot of responsibility in managing a fire department. You know, you think of Lebanon Fire, and there are 36 firefighters. And then you think of IFD with 1,700 firefighters. That's a big gap in numbers, but the job is exactly the same. Now, we do not have the Salesforce Tower, 47 stories in downtown Lebanon, but it's the same job. We're managing training, we're managing investigations, we're managing inspections, we're managing car seat programs, we're managing everything that a larger department does, just on a smaller scale.
To revert back just a little bit, the previous question, that what happens in 4 years if personnel changes? What happens in 4 years if your job changes?
Right.
But you also stated at the very start of this contract you're going to enter into has not been determined how many years that contract is going to run.
Correct,
whether it's
sir.
1 year, 4 years, 8 years, whatever is determined. So no matter what would happen in, say, 4 years, a new trustee, if you're under a contract for, I'm just going to pick a figure, 10 years, then you're under that contract. Would that be an assumption?
Correct. That would be an assumption, yes.
That's what I'm saying. So in 4 years, something could all change. We could all change our positions and something, but under that contract, you'd still be obligated to fulfill that contract for that amount of years.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But again, these are such positive changes, and you know, I can't predict the future. I wouldn't be a firefighter if I could predict the future, but I can't imagine a mayor or a trustee that would want to take this unity away from the people. The quality of service that both departments can bring together, the coverage, just the operational continuity, the ability to change ISO ratings. I mean, that's important. That's a big impact on a community. I just can't imagine going backwards. And I'm not saying that it can't happen. We've all seen stranger things happen. But I think people would have a lot to answer for to take away such a quality joint service away from the citizens.
And to your point too, sir, we're a little bit of an anomaly right now. I actually sent out an email to all the other mayors in Indiana asking if they know of a situation like ours where we have 2 professional fire departments within the same township. And when I talked with the staff or for the city or the Cities and Towns Association, they were not aware of anything like us. So we are kind of the anomaly to have the 2 separate departments.
Okay, that concludes our presentation. If anyone would like to come up and speak and address the audience, address myself, the microphone is yours. Please state your name and where you live.
I really don't know that I'll need the microphone, but my name's Mike Reynolds. I live here in Center Township, unincorporated Center Township. I've lived here since 1992 when I moved in. I've actually lived in Lebanon since '89. I spent the first 10 years in town working for Witham as a paramedic. And so I have some knowledge of how Center Township was working at the time and throughout time, and also working with Lebanon. I've known Chuck since you were in EMT class when I was one of the paramedics, and I also worked with Chief Spidell from Center Township for all those 10 years that I was with him. A little bit more about me, because I want you to know a little bit about what I do. I was asking some questions. As I'm a division chief of training for a Donut 7 county. So we're in the Donut 7 around Indianapolis. So it's a little bit larger department, maybe triple the size of Lebanon. And I'm, of course, in charge of the safety and the training. But I'm not here representing them. That's why I'm not mentioning the department. I think that's fair. I'm here as a taxpayer, but I do know something about firefighting and training. A little bit more about me is I haven't just stayed in this community and then went down there and lived my life, right? I'm still involved in this community. I happen to be the fair board president here in Boone County. I work each and every day for the fair, assuring that we have a quality fair, not just for this year, but for 20 years down the road. I'm engaged in this community, and I'm engaged with the kids in trying to make things better. With that being said, we had mentioned about the budget. So we know currently that we're spending about $850,000 in Center Township to operate the fire department. And if we look at the geozones, as he had mentioned, we can see here the primary response areas, we got 3 geozones. So all these geozones over here are being covered by Lebanon. And us as the taxpayers in the unincorporated area, we're not offering anything financially to you.
No.
No. So for these 3 geozones, we are basically responsible. They are responsible primarily for these. And that's $850,000. Okay? Now, yes, they'll come out into these areas as mutual aid. But we just got to think about that for a second. And then Lebanon's willing to take over that for $650,000 a year. That's a $200,000 savings. I would argue that I think he's being way too generous. But we've had that discussion before, and that's just me as in the unincorporated area. Some of the things that I look at is the capital expenditures. So he mentioned to you a little bit about capital expenditures. As he said, the newest engine that currently Center Township has is right around a 2001. Okay, if you look at NFPA standard 17, or if you look at NFPA standard 1901, which is National Fire Protection Association, they set out standards that they want fire departments to meet. And if you get sued, right, because of something bad happened, they can argue NFPA standards. Are you meeting the standards? Well, NFPA says that a fire engine typically has a 15-year lifespan. Otherwise, it's got to be refurbished, right? And that's a significant price to refurbish an apparatus. Anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 to get it done right. So we know that that apparatus is coming to the end of its service life. So we know that we're going to have expenditures moving forward. But that's just the first one. We know that they need to also get new breathing apparatus. As he stated, they're on a low pressure system versus the high pressure system. Well, new NFPA standards are out as to what an SCBA is supposed to have on it. And those old low pressure systems, the tanks do expire to where they can't be used anymore. And I would argue that they're probably really close to expiration, in which you need to replace them. But the new self-contained breathing apparatus, if a firefighter goes down in a building, there's ways with trackers that we can go find their location. We can find them throughout the building. But on those old low pressure systems, that's not available. So I believe we're going to increase the safety of the firefighters moving forward if we were to move to the city of Lebanon. Another thing that they talk about is deployment of forces. So NFPA 1710 lays out that, like he said, fire engines should have 4 people on it. And that's going to be something that Lebanon is going to be able to offer to the citizens of unincorporated Center Township. I think that is going to be a great benefit. And those 6 full-time employees are going to be absorbed in. And we look that approximately 6 of the part-time employees are full-time somewhere else. They're just getting extra money. We're looking here at increasing the services to the community. So currently, we're looking at about an ISO 9 in Center Township, and I know he mentioned a little bit about that, but being at a 6 is significantly going to help the homeowners, and it would also significantly help development out in unincorporated Center Township. We've got to remember that these farmers are, that's a multi-million-dollar operation. The commercial insurance is not cheap for these folks. And if we can make a huge impact and improve that service and improve that ISO rating, I don't see how we're losing here. So let's take a look at what's required by ISO. If you want to meet the ISO standard, what does it take? How much training does it take per year? Well, it actually takes 216 hours for a standard firefighter. So for a standard firefighter, you're supposed to have 216 hours of training. You're supposed to have 192 hours of just general training, but then you also need 18 hours of facilities training. Facilities training means you need to be training in that tower out there. It's got to be a minimum of 3 stories, and Lebanon has got that, and it's available to them. Another thing they got to have is 6 hours of hazmat. So we need to be making sure that we're meeting that standard. So now you're looking at 216 hours of training. So in that small department with one training person, they have a chief and assistant chief in which they do their training. You got 216 hours. But remember, there's 3 shifts. So now you got to multiply that by 3. That's how many hours needs to be spent per year on those employees. That means that each employee, these part-time employees, needs to be training a minimum of 4.15 hours per week if you want to meet the ISO standard. So I would just say that that's probably difficult at best. And I do know, because I know people in firefighting, right? I know people from Center Township, and I've talked to the Center Township firefighters. Just a few years ago, when they had their ISO rating, they were having some difficulties documenting their training, in which that was a little bit of a ding. That was actually a bigger ding on their ISO rating because there wasn't documentation. We as professional firefighters must document. If you don't document, it didn't happen. If anyone works in the medical field, right? If you don't document, it didn't happen. And if for some reason, God forbid, a firefighter went down, we're going to have to justify that they had that training. And if not, it's going to be the people of Center Township that are going to help pay this bill. So we are actually making ourselves, not only the customer significantly safer, but we are also going to make the firefighters safer because they have the hierarchy, the budget, the programming, the facilities to improve the safety of not just the part-time workers, but the Center Township full-time workers. Okay? So, I'm just continuing on. I want to make sure that I hit all my notes, and I promise I will not be as long-winded as you. Okay? So I see that we're going to be in a win-win situation. The other thing that I would say is firefighting, there is nothing safe about being a firefighter. We have a mission, and we need to be mission-oriented. And there's times we take risk, but it's all managed risk. The way we manage that risk is what? Through training. Are we any different than the military? Absolutely not. Why is the Marine so good? Because they train, because they practice, because they document that they do that. Why? I'm not going to get into IU and Purdue because I'm sure we could take half the room, and you folks, some of you are here and there, so we're going to take Butler. Why does Butler make it to the playoffs every year? Because it's their mission. Their mission is to show up and be ready. They practice, they prepare, they're ready to go. So recently at that fire up on Lebanon Street, I think some of us may have seen it in the newspaper, there was a problem with the fire apparatus in which maybe something happened to it, but it was unable to pump. Now, one of the things that's required is a daily check on that apparatus. So, yes, it could have happened on the run. Maybe it happened because there wasn't a check. We really don't have those facts. But what I would say is when the military goes out, let's say the Marines were going out of Fallujah. It was back during the war when it was hot and heavy. Would they go out, get out there to the fight, and let my bullets back there? No. What is the ammunition for a firefighter? Water. Knowing that it's going to come out of the end of that hose. When they arrived, no water came out of the end of the hose. We have to be mission oriented. We have to be prepared. And I would like to thank Chief Batts, and I'd like to thank the community for listening to me. And if anyone has any questions for me or comments to me, you're welcome to share them. So, thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to speak?
Yeah, I can bring a microphone to you if you don't want that to come up.
I used to stand up here anyway.
This is going to be pretty short, but back in 2007, I was the deputy chief of the Lebanon Fire Department. In 2008, I made chief, but in 2007, we made an agreement, first starting with Center Township, to have automatic aid response to unincorporated Center Township. And that's why Lebanon has those areas up north, because our stations is much closer. We were having times up on Station 12 where Center Township was passing by our station to go to a run, and it just made no sense. I was kind of selfish. All this kind of stemmed from a childhood incident for me, where we had a house fire out by Dover. Our responding fire department came, saw it was in the wrong jurisdiction, and they turned around and went back and let our house burn to the ground. Now, that was Lebanon Fire Department. A lot of things have changed since then. So that was one of my missions when I joined Lebanon Fire Department, to try to get that changed. And we did. First, we started with Center Township, and then we approached Sugar Creek on 47 and 39, because we were always going there for wrecks. The difference between mutual aid and automatic aid is we get the call, the dispatch, as the responding apparatus, not as an assisting agency. With an assisting agency, they might wait till they get on the scene to call us. Too many minutes are lost. So basically, that's about all I had to say, and that's where that agreement came from, was in 2007. Thanks.
Would anyone else like to speak? Sure.
I'm Melissa Lamerson. I live in 2232, which is unincorporated Center Township, ISO 9. I learned a ton this evening. I had no idea all that it took to run a fire department, let alone multiple fire departments. Just very well educated tonight, so thank you, Chief, for that. We had a house fire near us. Our neighbors had a house fire just last year, and we had only moved out to that area. We've only been in that area about 3 years now. Before that, I lived in the city of Lebanon, within the city limits. It was interesting to watch that process, and I want to know that I want to have safety and feel assured that when a call is made, whether for my home, my neighbors, anybody out there, that the response time is going to be quick, that the equipment is going to be sufficient, and the firefighters are going to be working together. And I heard all of those things tonight with this plan. I'm very confident in this contracting. I think it's the right move for the citizens of the unincorporated township as well as Lebanon. I think it's mutually beneficial. I'm very intrigued by the fire board, that there's going to be citizens appointed to the fire board. That's actually one of my questions. Can I ask a question still?
Sure, absolutely.
How are the citizens going to be appointed to the board?
We are going to have an application process.
Okay, so maybe I'll submit my application, I don't know. I thank Chief for the education and the information this evening. I learned more than I ever knew for the fire department, and again, I'm actually very intrigued by the whole ISO 9 and ISO 6. I had no idea that those things influenced my insurance, so that's music to my ears, that I can have my taxes possibly reduced and have my insurance possibly lowered and still maintain safety for my family. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Kathy looks at me like I'm going to be up here for 10 minutes. It's not going to happen. Kevin Van Horn, I currently serve on the Boone County Council, and if you live in Lebanon, Indiana, I represent you probably about 89, 90% of Lebanon is who I represent with respect to the Boone County Council. When I came on 3 years ago on that council, I was just overblown, just blown away with the dollars that come into this county. I have no idea what Lebanon's budget is without sitting down with the mayor and going over it page by page, but I do know what the county budget is. With respect to the county budget, our goal is to stay 15%, for lack of a better word, a rainy day fund, stay 15%. My main concern with this is to make sure that the taxpayers of Lebanon, Indiana are taken care of. Kathy and I, we have a budget that we take care of. I shouldn't say we, that she takes care of because she does all the work. But she understands that we've got this much money coming in, this is how much we're going to spend. And it should be the same way with respect to government work, with respect to fire departments, police departments, and as the chief has very eloquently displayed this evening and made all of us understand that there is going to be a cost savings here of right at about $200,000. I'm the eternal optimist. When the chief tells me that he has no plans on tearing down this building and bringing another one in, I'm going to assume that he's telling me the truth. He's worthy of my trust, as well as the rest of you out here are worthy of my trust until you prove to me otherwise. Now, if a year from now he goes over there and tears down that building, I'm going to look at him eyeball to eyeball and I'm going to say, what the world are you doing? You just told all of us that it wasn't going to happen. He is worthy of my trust until he proves to me otherwise. Most importantly, though, I understand that the constituents out here is my main concern with respect to the taxes. And if it is going to keep the taxes down, if we are going to save money through the ISO, through the insurance programs, if we're going to save $200,000 on the merging of these, it gives me great confidence, as the young lady here just said, it gives me great confidence to know that when I hit 911, or you who lives out there in 2232, gives me great confidence to know that those 6 firefighters, if this merge does take place, that if they do come in, that those 6 firefighters are going to do just as great a job as the Lebanon Fire Department does on a daily basis. There is no doubt in my mind that those 6 firefighters will come over and do the same job that Chief Batts and the rest of them do every day. So my applause to Chief Batts with respect to explaining everything here. I know he's worked hard on it along with the rest of the team. And again, know in your heart that I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure that the taxpayer is saving a little bit of money. Every one of us know that we could put a little bit extra in our pocket. And if you don't believe me, ask my wife. You mentioned a vehicle from 2001. I look at Kathy. I've been telling her for 15 years, Kathy, let's get another car. Let's get another car. She's got a car that she's been driving since 1998, has 107,000 miles on it. I don't need another car. This one serves me just fine. But it gives me great comfort, again, to know that those professionals, whether they're from Lebanon Fire Department or the Center Township Fire Department, that they're going to come in there and in a heartbeat, they're going to serve me and they're going to serve you, and they're going to serve in 1141, the farthest, 1115, 2234. Whenever we dial 911, they're going to be there in a heartbeat to help us. God forbid it ever has to happen. Thank you.
Take a few less steps.
That's all right. Knee doesn't work when I sit for a long time. Most of you know me, I'm Tom Volbrick. I'm a 68 and a year half member of Boone County, soon to be 69. There's not a dollar value that we can put on safety. We can't spend enough. We never will spend enough. We need to have that dollar value. The one thing I was listening for tonight, though, and I believe I heard some, is a savings of dollars. As we are all getting older, like I just said, I'm 68 and a half years old. My fixed income is exactly what it is. I don't have that high dollar job anymore. I'm glad I retired. I went to Florida for the first time for 3 months. Loved it. Plan on going back. But we need to save every dollar we can, but spend every dollar we can for safety, because our citizens, I'm looking around this room, our citizens of this county are getting older and older, their income is getting less and less. So if we can save insurance money, we can save expenditure money, whatever we can save, I think would be the way to go. It is the contract that I was kind of concerned about, how long it was going to be, but evidently that was explained to me a little bit different tonight. I don't know if it's just up to one person in this room, 3 people in this room, or what it's up to. But if you get in that position that you're going to be able to choose yes or no, please take in consideration of everyone that speaks to you, speaks with their heart, that this is possibly the way to go. Again, I don't have all the answers. I'm sure Chuck doesn't have all the answers. The current township trustee doesn't have all the answers, but I think we need to get together on that, and I just wanted to speak on that matter.
Anyone else? I was emailed 2 letters to read tonight from people that could not attend. The first letter is from City Councilman Brent Wheat. He's also a retired LPD officer, and he served many years on the Center Township Advisory Board. So this is the letter from Brent Wheat. I have asked Chief Batts to read this statement as I am currently out of state. I recently served 3 years on the Center Township Advisory Board and saw firsthand the operations of the Center Township Fire Department. Having retired as a police officer from the Lebanon Fire Department, I'm also very familiar with the operations of the Lebanon Fire Department. Both departments have a long tradition of faithfully serving the community. Both departments serve honorably and with courage and skill. However, both departments have a service area that significantly overlaps, which causes an unnecessary duplication of services to taxpayers. Many people involved in both the political arena and in the fire service will privately admit that a Center Township Lebanon Fire Department reunification has been a good idea for a very, very long time. But reaching that goal has been challenging for a host of reasons. Today, I would simply like to highlight that now is the time for this long-standing good idea be brought forward and honestly discussed in good faith, regardless of who the voters choose as the next Center Township trustee. As someone with loyalties in both camps, I believe we can arrive at a solution that satisfies both sides of the issues. Talking is key. I know this is possible because ultimately everyone involved in this issue wants to serve the public in the best possible way they can. In my opinion, the answer is by actively working to reunite the fire departments. Cordially, Brent T. Wheat. The second letter I received today is from Chief Mike Spidell of the Center Township Fire Department. Chief Spidey is a retired member of the Lebanon Fire Department. He is a paramedic with Boone County EMS, and he's also our Boone County Veterans Officer. Chief Spidell is in a part-time status as a chief with the Center Township Fire Department. Chief Spidell asked me to read this for you tonight. I apologize, I am unable to attend tonight's meeting. I underwent a medical procedure this morning and I'm still a little under the weather. Chief Batts and I met last week and we discussed some of the new information regarding the unification contract proposal. I feel we are moving things in the right direction, unifying the departments. A unification that benefits all citizens of unincorporated Center Township and the city of Lebanon. Pooling resources, manpower, and finances will create a stronger service for all of our citizens. Respectfully, Chief Mike Spidell. I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Time is a very precious commodity, and you chose it to spend listening to me talk about this contract. If you go away from here and you have additional questions or you didn't feel comfortable addressing in front of a crowd, please contact me. Please reach out by phone, by email, and we can talk through your questions and answer them. Thanks again for your attention this evening.